All right. Good morning, sixth graders. It's Monday, April 20th. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. Just really quick disclaimer, you've probably noticed this now for quite a while. It does take a few seconds for me to be able to start talking when we have these videos. That's because I have to set up the audio every time. So it does take just a little bit. So I'm sorry if you have like a good 10 seconds where it sounds silent. I'm not doing it on purpose, but I'm not movie savvy enough to be able to fix it so that that doesn't happen every time. So I'm sorry about that. So hope everyone had a good weekend. And along with that, you have your warm up here. No more than 3 complete sentences. Just tell me what you've been doing this whole time to entertain yourself, right? I mean, I understand that a lot of you are probably getting a decent amount of homework, which is by design. But I'm sure that you have had a lot of downtime, whether it's with family or by yourself or whatever you're doing. And I'm just curious as to what you've been doing to entertain yourself while you've been home this whole time. So feel free to leave a response either on paper or on the Google Classroom page. All right, so we're going to kind of pick up where we left off from Friday. You should have all of the reading guides in your weekly packet complete now. And since it's the last day before turn-in, what we're going to do is we're going to be doing the note slides here that are attached on the Google Classroom and also in your packet. Okay, so if you want to do that on paper, you do not have to turn this in by any means, right? These are your notes to keep. So if you want to pull these out of your packet and do these on paper, you do not have to turn it in today, okay? So that being said, we are going to get into the notes. I just want to let you know I do have a crash course video on the Haitian Revolution. This is an older one from his original series, but it is really good, and I think it gets into all of the key components that we talk about. And as always, John Green does a great job with illustrating points that I can't draw. So if you want to look at that when we're done, feel free. It is not required. Okay. So I'm going to pull up the notes then for what we're doing today. You should be following along in your own packet. Remember, you are not going to be getting note slides on everything that is on here. Okay. It's going to be up to you to see where it lines up in your packet, but what you're going to be doing is going to be in order with how it appears on here. Okay. So just getting into Haiti as a country, we're going to get into its history, the culture, mainly meaning the countries that have had influence over it. And we're probably not going to get into too many of the present day challenges here. That's something that's later on that I would teach in my normal class, but because of the way that we're learning right now, probably not going to get to it. Okay. So when you're looking at Haiti, we've talked about this already, but just to give you a little bit of an idea of where it is, we're sitting right here in the world in the Caribbean, right? We have the United States and Florida up here. This is Cuba just off to the west. And as you can see, if this picture is blown up here, you've got the eastern coast of Cuba. You have Haiti and the Dominican Republic here. This whole island, you should remember, is called the island of Hispaniola, correct? And it's going to be named after the guy that we're going to talk about here in just a second. Okay, so Haiti, or Haiti, as it was known back in the day, was originally split between 5 different Native American rulers. There were 5 kingdoms. So you have the Jaragua, the Marion, the Maraguia, Magua, and the Higüey. Now, all of these names are translated from Old Native speak. So they didn't have a written language, so it's our best interpretation of how it was pronounced. But we don't really know exactly how to pronounce them. We're just doing our best based off of the French and the Spanish. So you have originally about 250,000 inhabitants, 250,000 people. That's about the amount of people that live in inner city St. Paul. And that's a pretty sizable population. But I think what's really important is we're going to see what this number is going to dwindle down to in just a couple of years after the Europeans arrive. Okay, so your notes should be starting here. So on August 3rd, 1492, a guy we know by Columbus. You'd have been called Cristobal Colon back in Spanish society. He set sail from Spain on 3 ships, Santa Maria, Pinta, and the Nina. He's got 200 people. Takes a few months, just a little over 3 months, and he is going to land on San Salvador. Okay, now that's the first island that he makes landfall on. Names this area here the West Indies, which sticks for a long time because he really thinks that he's over on this other side of the world near the country of India today. Okay, he obviously wasn't. Now he's going to eventually head this way, southwest. He's going to hit Cuba, and he's going to sail along the coast of Cuba until he hits the Isle of Hispaniola right here. Okay, now once that happens, he is going to encounter a horrible, horrible storm on Christmas Day. And when he does that, he is going to take the wreckage of one of his ships and build a fort with that remaining wood and supplies that the ship is destroyed from, and he will return there when he comes back. Okay, but he's going to go back to Spain in the beginning because he needs to make a resupply trip after having a lot of his stuff destroyed. Now, when they get to Hispaniola, they find that it has a lot of mineral resources. Okay, and what the first thing they want to find is gold. We've talked about that, right? And in just less than 20 years, making all of the indigenous people they encountered dig for them, they're going to dwindle that 250,000 people down to about 14,000. Okay, that is over 90% of people that are dead. Now, I know what you're thinking. What can they do to force them to work for them with so many natives, so many more of them than European soldiers? The Europeans had one scary, scary invention to bring with them, and that was gunpowder, right? Natives had never seen or heard gunpowder explode before, nor had they ever seen metal tools with swords, shovels, bayonets, things that would cause a destructive amount of damage. They must have been awestruck by it, okay? Now, when you lose 90% of the people by about 1511, we're going to see these African slaves brought in over the Atlantic Ocean, okay? Now, on the western portion around the same time, there are going to be French buccaneers, which are like pirates. They're going to start out on Tortuga Island, and they are going to head inland to try to find more resources for themselves. So they're going to carve into this area over here. And this western area will be kind of French controlled, even though the whole island is supposedly under the rule of the Spanish. Okay. Now, later on, the Spanish encounter some hard times. So they end up giving this western portion here to the French crown, and the French are going to name this area Saint-Domingue, which Domingue actually is the French word for Sunday, meaning that they're going to call this place Saint Sunday. Okay. Now, by 1763, there are going to be 30,000 Africans imported per year. Okay. Now, most of them are going to be dead within, if not a year or so, a few years after being brought in. Okay. And the reason they could justify doing this is because it was the richest colony in the world, and it was providing an unbelievable amount of money to the French by way of the materials it was producing. And it really wasn't gold or silver. It's going to be based off of the plantations where they would be growing cash crops. We know it as sugar. They also were big into coffee growing, cotton, and indigo, which was used for blue dye. Fun fact, the only way that you could bring out the blue coloring in indigo to actually dye clothes was to put the clothes with the indigo leaves along with stale urine. So when they used to dye clothes back then, the thing that made it set into clothing was old pee. There you go. Fun fact for the day. Okay, so very similar to the pyramid that we have in Spanish colonial society, we've got Europeans at the top, right? Now, we've got these blank spots here, and what that means is it's how many generations from being from Europe could you be? Okay, so if you were one generation away and you had some mixed ancestry, you would be a level below. 2 generations, 3, and so far and so forth, right? So that really isn't too much of a concern for us. All we need to know is that at the top, we have Europeans, and as we go down, it's how much more of African slave do you have in your ancestry, right? And at the very bottom, and this is by design, you're going to have people that are full-fledged people from Africa, they're slaves at the bottom of the totem pole. And the reason is because if they can do that, they can exercise complete control and they can continue to extract wealth from these sugar, coffee, cotton, all these plantations in Saint-Domingue. Not saying that it's pretty. It's an awful, awful system that exploits way more people than it helps. In fact, it leads to the death of a lot of people, but it was the reality. At the time, this was known as the Blue Vein Society, and it's really sad to say, but a lot of your worth and the rights that you got, because records were not very accurately kept at that time, had to do with the tone of your skin. So the whiter that you were in Saint-Domingue, the more rights that you were going to get. Okay, if you had mixed ancestry, you were given some rights, but if you were someone that was from Africa, odds are that you were going to be someone that was on the lowest round of the totem pole. We see this a lot in India as well. In their caste system, they had the untouchables on the bottom. And unfortunately, wherever you were born, that was where you were going to stay. And there really wasn't any room for what we call social mobility or a way for you to improve your standing. We see that now when people that have been from backgrounds where people haven't been educated before, they can take out loans and go to college and get themselves educated so that they can make some progress towards different goals. That wasn't allowed at this time, okay? And sadly, this color issue in Haiti that exists way from back when, although they have done a lot to try to fix it, it still is something that is very, very easy to see, as unfortunately Haiti is the poorest nation in the Caribbean today. Okay, so eventually people are going to be fed up with what's going on. They want change. So the Declaration of Rights of Man comes out in the French Revolution, and we have our first slave revolution or rebellion by Duty Boukman. We spelt it with a U earlier, but it really means a literate person who can read. So this is also an accepted spelling. We're going to get Toussaint. He's going to come in eventually, and he is stating to the Haitian people that, hey, we have enough people here. We've lived here long enough. We know how to govern ourselves. We're smart enough. We just need the opportunity. So we need to be autonomous, or we need to rule ourselves. Okay. Now they're gonna fight against the French for Spain, because Spain was on the other part of Hispaniola, and Spain promised to help them get their rights from the French. Now, unfortunately, the Spanish, they kind of lied, right? They just wanted to get the French out of there, and then they were fully planning on instituting the same policy because that part of the island did produce so much money, right? Now, during this time, Toussaint is going to be the unquestioned leader of these slaves that want to be freed, okay? So he is eventually going to be named Governor General for life. Sounds very similar to a Julius Caesar, doesn't it? Now, they're going to come out with a constitution that abolishes slavery, makes it illegal, okay? The second they do that, Napoleon is going to send a very, very large force of the French army down. They are going to trick Toussaint into a meeting saying that Napoleon will sit down with him and discuss peace terms, when in reality they took him prisoner and executed him. They totally betrayed his trust, okay? Now, upon his death, we have a new leader, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, who takes over, okay? He's going to defeat Napoleon's army, as we talked about on Friday, and he is going to be named the head of state, right? He's the guy who beat Napoleon. He's the one that has that image. He's the one that people are going to look forward to be able to continue this policy that they've set forth already. And the first thing that he does is he orders the construction of forts all along the coast. I'm sorry, that was my dog. he's going to order that there are going to be forts built all along the coast of Haiti to prevent the French from coming back. It's highly successful. Only problem is that once he keeps the French out, he starts putting those policies back in place that he had promised to get rid of, and he's assassinated. And upon that, Haiti's going to be split into 3 countries. They'll eventually be brought together again, but the countries are going to be split. It's kind of odd, but a lot of it's based on the crops that were commonly grown in these 3 areas. That's kind of where the split ends up being. I don't think it was purposely done that way, but that's the way it ends up being. So this is a map of Haiti today. These are its districts. But as you can see, the borders of it are still very, very, very similar to what we saw with the French and the Spanish control. To the east, we have the Dominican Republic. So these are some of the forts that would have been built around the time of Dessalines. I'm not exactly sure if all of them are from his time or not, but these would have been the ones or the areas that they would have wanted to protect from the French coming back. They've kept a lot of these intact because they are great tourist sites to go take a look at. So what did Haiti contribute? Okay. Reason we're studying it is because this is going to be the first time that we are going to see former slaves fight for independence from their home country. Okay. The United States, sure, they were the first one in the hemisphere to do it, but these were people that for the most part had rights, had wealth, and were just upset over taxes. Okay. These are people that are literally shackled and were killed because of how hard they were worked over hundreds of years. Okay. It's really the first successful slave revolution ever. And what's going to happen is that Haiti is going to become a freedom fighter or a supporter of other Latin American countries that we're going to talk about in the next few weeks here that are going to follow suit with their model. They're going to try to break free of their colonial oppressors. It's mostly going to be the Spanish, but they're going to be the ones that are going to try to help people out during this time. Okay. Now, they would help out anyone provided that the countries that were trying to break free from Spain or Portugal would abolish slavery. So they're going to really be at the forefront of trying to abolish or get rid of slavery all over the world. And as we see here, just really quickly, this is just going to be a map of all of the revolutions that are going to occur in Latin America. We do have the United States first, obviously, but it's not really Latin America. But the rest here are going to follow suit. But in the Caribbean and in Latin America, Haiti is going to be the very first one that is able to do so. We're going to end up going down here in just a little bit to talk about South America. But our next area of study is actually going to be Mexico. So after Haiti declares its independence, the French are going to lose most of their territories to the British in Canada. They're also going to end up selling the Louisiana Purchase to the United States. Now, Napoleon and the French in general really wanted to try to secure a large empire in the Western Hemisphere for themselves. And Haiti really throws a wrench in that, right? Because 12 years of fighting, trying to secure a place that for the most part makes a very large amount of their money. It was completely catastrophic, right? And in the end, Napoleon is going to end up being forced to step down. He's going to be put into exile. And for the most part, France is not going to really be competing as a world power for a very, very long time. And a lot of that's thanks to Haiti and its fight for its own independence. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is all that I have for you today. So you do not have any additional homework for tonight. You will be getting your packets later on today, and the first day of it will be starting tomorrow. We will come back to that. You do have your exit ticket though, so please get that done. We'll go into the Google Classroom and take a quick look at it. In your opinion, do you think the Haitian Revolution would have happened without the Third Estate first rebelling and making the Declaration of Rights of Man? Why or why not? Okay, that is your opinion. I think that should be at least a 2-sentence response. If you're looking for something to do later on today, you do have your crash course video that you can find underneath the lesson for today's lecture. All right, ladies and gents, have yourselves a wonderful day, and we will see you tomorrow, Tuesday, April 21st.